Hey folks, this is Kalani. Going to be looking at some other hunter specs because there's been a few buffs. It's kind of interesting. They brought up Serpent Sting, so that makes survival pretty okay. I'm not going to say it's really any better than okay. Marksman will still beat it in single target, and Beast Mastery will still beat it in anything more than 3 target, but survival has its nice little niche spot of being okay at single target and relatively good at 2 to 3 cleaves, and then pretty amazing actually when you get past 5 targets. So we'll look at it either which way. It's a really fun playstyle. It's definitely a lot more reactive than the other two with your lock and load procs. You have to actually watch out for those if you want to get the most out of your DPS, which is what we like to see from a damage spec. So we're looking at survival. Very quickly for talents, most of these don't change. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Chimera, get that cooldown off Disengage and Deterrence. Binding Shot is still incredibly nice for AoE stuns. Iron Hawk, because we're going to be using Lone Wolf, it provides a 10% damage reduction, which does not rely on your pet, whereas the other two do. Thrill of the Hunt is probably best for survival. The other two don't really offer you a great deal, and Arcane Shot is actually incredibly important for survival, but we'll get to that in a little while. A Murder of Crows is the highest DPS. You could take Stampede if you wanted to. It's a little less DPS, but obviously you've got a nice big cooldown button to push and you'll have quite a bit more burst. A Murder of Crows is the way to go for sustained DPS though. Glaive Toss for purely single target, and then Barrage for anything with 1 extra or more. Barrage is a typical go-to. Most of the fights in Heimel seem to have that extra target, so Barrage is very useful. And then down at the bottom, Lone Wolf and Exotic Munitions are a little interesting. So right now, Lone Wolf should be your go-to, but you can use Exotic Munitions. If you use Exotic Munitions, you need to make sure you're using Incendiary for when it's worthwhile, which is 3+ targets, I believe, and then Poisoned Ammo when you've just got the 1 target. Exotic Munitions will pull ahead if you prioritize your mastery. So we'll have a look at that, I guess. Your stat priority should go multi-strike. We want a lot more multi-strike on there if I was to go survival. Then crit, then mastery, haste, and versatility. Crit and mastery are pretty equal if you use Exotic Munitions, and become... It kind of goes crazy. If you have a lot of mastery, you're going to destroy on AoE because that's your Serpent Sting. Your mastery is going to increase your Serpent Sting, and your Serpent Sting is going to be ticking over every single target, so you're going to be destroying the meters. But obviously that's not really going to be the case most of the time, and if you want single target DPS, you want multi-strike, then crit. Mastery afterwards. That also means that Lone Wolf is kind of more valuable until higher gear levels, unless you're stacking your mastery, which I don't really recommend. So, let's have a quick look at your rotation, because you got quite a few abilities. You have your Arcane Shot, which applies Serpent Sting. Your Cobra Shot, which will give you focus, does no longer extend your Serpent Sting, so you'll need to make sure you Arcane Shot once every 16 seconds or so you keep that Serpent Sting rolling. Your Explosive Shot is your most important shot, and you need to use that on cooldown. Black Arrow, you need to keep that on cooldown whenever you've got Explosive Shot used, so Black Arrow will cause lock and load, which will give you 2 free charges of Explosive Shot which won't use its cooldown. So you fire 3 off in a row, but the last one will still cost you focus. A Murder of Crows from your talents, you want to keep that off cooldown at all times, and that's pretty much it. You've got your Barrage. You want to use your Barrage as often as possible, but make sure you're not starving yourself for Black Arrow and Explosive Shot. These two are so high in your priority. If you skip over one of these two for a few seconds, you're going to lose a huge chunk of your DPS. So right now, over 10 million damage, I ended up at just under 18k DPS. Single target, personal buff of multi-strike, so that's the only buff I had, which isn't terrible. That's a lot better than it was doing. But to start things off, what you want to do is Arcane Shot into Explosive Shot, Black Arrow, and a Murder of Crows. You might want to a Murder of Crows earlier. Still playing about with this. So if we change this to current fight, Murder of Crows into Black Arrow with Arcane Shot to get it rolling, and then Explosive Shot. There's the proc. And then you want to continue like that. And just keep on top of things. Make sure you use your procs for Thrill of the Hunt as quickly as possible. But don't focus starve yourself. As soon as Black Arrow comes up, you need to fire it off. So we'll save a little bit of focus there to get Black Arrow into an Explosive Shot. And you probably should have used Barrage by now, but we're just playing with the other ones to make sure everything's dandy. If you get a lot of procs at once, you want to get rid of your Explosive Shots as a priority, so you're not wasting any of those procs. A Thrill of the Hunt is important, and you shouldn't use your Barrage while you have a Thrill of the Hunt procs. But your Explosive Shot is always going to be more important, especially your Lock and Load procs. If you waste a Lock and Load proc, you're going to be wasting quite a lot of DPS. So right now, we should be okay to go into a Murder of Crows. Murder of Crows probably takes priority over your Lock and Load just because it is a lot of damage and you need to get that cooldown rolling as quickly as possible. It's not necessarily a question of getting the damage out there, it's a question of getting the cooldown going so you don't have to wait at all. The more Murder of Crows you get over the entire fight is going to yield higher damage, which is why we want to keep things on cooldown. So that's typically how things would go. You don't really have any cooldowns to worry about, you don't have anything like rapid fire. If you take Stampede, I guess that's 1, but it's going to be a damage decrease to take Stampede. And then if you have anything to cleave, 2 to 3 targets should be okay, but you want to be using your multi-shot. So we'll spread Serpent Sting to that secondary target. And you'll notice it does last for the full duration, so you'd only need to multi-shot once every 15 seconds or so to make sure that's ticking over on everything. But you do get the bonus damage from the Serpent Sting applying when you use multi-strike. So I guess it depends on how many targets you have. I think 3+ is probably a really good number to work with. If you have 3+, you want to replace Arcane Shot with multi-shot. But that's pretty much survival at this point. It's kind of simple. You don't really have anything to worry about cooldown wise, but it's a lot nicer rotation wise. It's not quite as static. You have quite a few things to work with. You've got 2 sets of procs, and managing them is going to be your key to doing a lot of damage as survival, although you're going to be relying a lot on your multi-strike. Survival definitely seems to be multi-strike dependent, and if you can get a lot of gear with multi-strike, then you're going to see a lot better results than with Beast Mastery, for example, on single target. So that's that. I'll give you a quick look at glyphs. The glyphs I use are typically disengage to increase the distance. You need to be very careful with this one though, because it lets you disengage a little bit further, but if you're not used to it, you may end up off a cliff, off an edge, down in a pit. I've done that too many times. And then Deterrence increases the damage reduction granted by Deterrence by 20%. Those are the only 2 which I would say are really nice and you should have at all times. Aspect of the Cheetah is a good one. You can freely use Aspect of the Cheetah with this glyph, and it won't daze you, which is really nice. It will put your others on cooldown though, so do bear that in mind. So if you go Aspect of the Cheetah and then get hit instantly, you're not going to have Aspect of the Cheetah, and you won't be able to Aspect of the Fox if anyone in your raid needs it. So I think that's pretty much everything you should need to get started on survival. It is pretty close right now. All 3 specs are okay, but as I say, survival has jack of all trades, I guess. It's okay single target, and it's pretty decent cleave, and then amazing AoE. It probably pokes past Beast Mastery for high target AoE as long as you've got a decent amount of mastery. But, you know, it depends what you're gearing for. So multi-strike, crit, then mastery. The rotation, as we were talking about. Quick overview of talents. And that should be everything you need to do some decent damage. If you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comments section below and I'll try to get back to you. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.